welcome to the fifth episode of the Fuzz Digital podcast. Last week we had a little discussion with Nag where we sort of chatted about gaming and marketing in gaming and sort of how the brand of Nag has evolved from just being in magazines to now being online and sort of how they sort of run things. I think in the past we've chatted a lot about data, but we sort of always added data as why it works in creative, why it works in marketing. But today we're actually sitting down with Farron, who is our sort of lead data guy and also run the dev as well. So thanks for being here, having a chat. Also, it's work hours, so
yeah, exactly.
Thanks for just working, I guess.
Cool, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. So I think let's start off with who you are, how you sort of got into this, and give us a little bit of a background on you.
Sure. So, I've had sort of 3 real careers in my life. Started off doing mechanical engineering out of high school and into varsity, and then spent some time in the sort of manufacturing industry for a while. After that, I pivoted, and I became a journalist. I wrote for the Sunday Times for about 5 years. That ended about 2018, and COVID happened, and I decided then to change careers again, and I took the opportunity to study some more. And data science was something that was always interesting to me. I'd done data journalism, and so sort of naturally fell into the data side as well. And with sort of my history, with background at least in engineering, I always had a sort of analytical mind. And then fast forward 4 years, and here I am.
Still here. I think we have very similar upbringings. Also did mechanical engineering, decided to pivot, and then I pivoted into financial advising actually. Yeah. Got into that field, and I was like, no, I think creative is my thing. So how do you feel like data now is sort of part of you because you chose it, or do you think in a few years you'll probably want to pivot again?
I mean, honestly, I don't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. Although I think the way the world is going and the way the technology is going, you sort of can't divorce the two from whatever you're doing now.
Yeah.
With the rise of machine learning and now AI, sort of all industries are some way affected or, require the assistance of or, are amplified and bettered by the use of data and its understanding. So I guess whatever I end up doing, there'll be a data element to it. But I'm always up to learning new things. So a pivot might be in my future in the next 5 to 10. But for now, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
But at least, like you said, if you pivot, it's going to be a slight pivot, still sort of staying in data.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into ballet all of a sudden, So
who knows? Maybe
who does know? Actually, yeah.
Actually, you might have some excellent feet.
I don't think I've got the legs for it, to be honest. Yeah.
We'll have to try, and maybe let's go for a lesson and see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
It's another episode, maybe.
Episode 6. So I think that's very fascinating, and I think you sort of touched on it now. It's like a lot of fields and a lot of aspects do support data, and like I said, even with the past episodes we've had, whether that was in paid media or the creative side, we always spoke about data because data, I feel, drives a lot of things. So can you just sort of tell me what are the key data aspects and sort of insights and strategies that Fuzz offer and sort of data solutions we have?
Sure. So, firstly, at Fuzz, we've got 2 data scientists who are sort of efficient at end-to-end data management, data pipeline management at least. So that includes everything from data collection and sort of wrangling to EDA, which is exploratory data analysis. Then we do advanced visualizations as well, all the way up to machine learning and AI. So we do have capable people here, and then we use that to really offer sort of bespoke solutions for our clients. So we use that to do data analysis for them. We use that to build interactive dashboards, and all of this is with the outcomes of providing business intelligence. Methods like scraping and a variety of other things, which eventually we use to help build strategies for clients and give them really good insights into their businesses and how they can improve performance.
Once again, we've touched on this a few times, and we've had this discussion, you and me, sort of in private about sort of data and the amount of data that is available today. Like it feels like everywhere you go, you can find like a vast array of data on anything. It feels like you can search for whatever you want and there will be data on it.
Yeah.
So how do you guys make use of analytics, and what do you think sort of the importance is of analytics to drive business insights?
So typically we integrate client data from various sources, including their own data, which we use pretty advanced tools to collect and house. And then we also supplement that with market-related data or any other related data which we can go out and find, and or even data that we're able to scrape that will then support and help us in terms of analysis. We analyze the data. We determine KPIs that align with the business objective to translate our findings into insights and actionable strategies.
Okay. So you sort of don't just take the data and just take it for what it is. You try and formulate plans around the data that then works for that company and for that company's specific KPIs that they have.
That's right. But we're also careful not to let the data tell us a story that we want to hear, you know. So we're very objective in the way we analyze the data,
Yeah.
and we have to be honest with what we find and the information we share with clients. Because at the end of the day, you know, like I said, we use these to devise business strategies for them. And if we don't see something we like, we share that information and we're honest about it. And a lot of times it's actually been beneficial for us because we've been able to pick up errors within the way client operations have been run, which has allowed them to take it, well, not take advantage, but to act on what we found and sort of root out those problems within the organization and stop them. So it's not always about finding positive trends. In fact, it's sometimes more beneficial to find the negative trends because those are things that you can fix and work on and then be better at.
Yeah, I think like a few weeks ago, you had the problem with the data was showing an ideal story, which you sort of said you can't just have the data lead you to this wrong story, but then also giving I would say the wrong answer to the client that they don't necessarily want to hear. And I know you guys mentioned that one of the metrics that they were covering were sort of checkouts, but they didn't actually get the data from checkouts, but only from people going up into the checkout process, but never completing the order.
That's great.
And in that point, it looked like they were getting millions and millions of sales, for example, but then they were only getting a fraction of that because a lot of people weren't actually completing the process.
Exactly.
So how do you sort of run about that? And I know you said now it's great because you can actually help them rectify the problem, but then do you just report on that, and how do you guys run with that?
Yeah, so like I said, we data could seem like a completely objective thing, and in the best use case it is, but it does contain biases in it, and especially in how you analyze it, biases can come through. So I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the analysis is done by humans, even though we use statistical methods. The way we collect data or the data that's given to you and the way you interpret it can all have biases in it. And that can lead you to incorrect conclusions.
Yeah.
Even the pressure of a client wanting a certain answer could lead to an incorrect conclusion. So you've got to be brave and stand up to that, and actually just be truthful and like you mentioned earlier, go where the data leads you instead of the other way around. So we do that through checks and balances internally, and trying to remain as objective as we can, and like I said, not being afraid to be honest with clients, because at the end of the day, it's best for them, and it helps them be better in what they're trying to achieve. To point out weaknesses or places or areas in what they're doing that can be improved upon. So like what you mentioned earlier, something we were able to pick out, and then we were able to change how the reporting was done so that it's more accurate now, and so that now those purchases are only once those transactions are completed, and now we get a lot more accurate data for that client and are able to give them way better answers in terms of how their funnel is tracking. So in this, we're talking now in a specifically e-commerce setting, that funnel of someone starting a transaction, when adding to cart and then going to checkout, and that making sure that's not the end process, but the end process actually being when that purchase is complete.
Yeah.
and then looking at how that funnel looks, and trying to improve different steps based on looking at where people are falling off, and where they're not completing steps of that funnel.
Yeah.
So now that we know that drop off is happening there, now we have a truer number of how many people are actually completing. We can now focus on that area where there's a failure or a weakness.
Yeah, because it might be a payment method problem.
Absolutely.
And then people are dropping off there because they can't physically complete a payment or whatever.
That's right.
Via a certain way. So now the data says we're getting sales, but now with this better, more accurate solution, you can actually see where's the drop off, fix that, and then hopefully lead to more sales.
Exactly. And like you said, so then we can start looking at which areas to focus on, or we can, at least not areas to focus on. We can look across the affected area and go, what could that be? Could it be a technical thing on the website? Could be a payment gateway thing that's causing people not to be able to complete transactions? Because it seems that from an advertising point, you're leading people to the site and you're getting them to add to cart and go to checkout. So it's not really, you're not saying, you realize that the error isn't really on that side, that maybe it is more technical thing.
Yeah.
And that once that gets fixed, you suddenly see a pickup, or an increase in completing of transactions. So exactly right.
And then you can also just once again look at the data once you fixed it, see if that actually improved the problem or if it might be something else.
Absolutely. Does that step need to be fixed? Does that step need to be removed? Does the process need to be streamlined? It allows you to sort of A/B test within the process. Just look at what the processes and the steps are, adjust certain things, and then see if they work or not, and then go and try try different ways to correct any of the inefficiencies.
Okay, great. So I think this is all great and everything, and you sort of said that you need to also have that human aspect, but AI is sort of picking up a lot. How do you guys use AI? Do you guys use it a lot, and how do you sort of implement it with the data analysis and things?
Yeah, so firstly, we completely embrace the new technology, and we use it to be better at our jobs, in fact. We don't hide from it at all. We use it on a daily basis, and I encourage even my colleagues and other departments in our company to do the same, just because it is so useful and so powerful when used correctly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've been strong on it, so we've got a bit ahead of it, and we use it daily for things like prompting and automating certain processes. We also use it for assistance, as well as sort of internal processes that can be made a lot quicker and a lot easier with the use of the technology.
Yeah.
Really, if it can do a lot of heavy lifting for us, we take advantage of it. And we try and introduce, or help at least other business units and areas of the company to do the same, to help streamline processes that normally would be quite
tedious
for humans. Where the creative person can be a creative person could use their time more efficiently being creative versus doing a tedious sort of a function of their job.
Yeah.
I would way rather have your team be creative than do some tedious function that we can assist or that AI can do for them.
I can't even remember who said this, but there was this one video I watched, and this guy was like, people are so worried about AI taking over their jobs that people are missing the fact that people who are using AI to assist them to better do their jobs will actually be the people that are ahead in the next few years, instead of people who are so worried about AI taking over their jobs, because AI in most sectors might not take over. It might just become a tool that helps you do all the tedious stuff that could be done on an automated process, having you focus on the real important things.
I'm so glad you said that, because even with the introduction of the technology, it still requires skilled people in those areas to properly use and take advantage of it.
Yeah.
You could give a developer an AI tool, and he could build a whole website with just prompts using that tool. But the same tool in the hands of a non-technical person wouldn't be able to build you the same quality website, or be able to troubleshoot or prompt and ask the right questions and get the proper answers, and even know how to interpret them, without that technical ability. So it's really just there to support a person in whatever they're trying to achieve, you know. So for me, for instance, in a creative space, I wouldn't know how to properly prompt a Gen AI tool in the same way you or someone on your team would, you know. But so the point is that it still needs that technical person, I believe, to get the most out of it. There can be some assistance that we can give in helping in terms of how to prompt, to get to ask the sort of methodology in terms of using the interface and asking the correct questions and how to structure those questions. But what the question is and how to interpret the answers, the technical person is the best person to actually get the best out of it. So those people aren't going to go away. Like you said, they're just going to be better at their jobs because of the support and the insights they can get from these technologies.
One of our lecturers in university, when we started using Ansys, which is sort of a tool that people use to simulate different things, so either flow simulation, whatever you want to do, he used to say also that Ansys is a very powerful tool, and it's a very expensive tool as well, but he said that if you aren't trained as an engineer, you can get an answer.
Exactly.
But the problem is you wouldn't know if that answer is correct. Because you might get an answer that is actually completely wrong, but because you have that background of engineering and because you studied it, you would have a sort of sense of, whoa, this might not be correct. Like that force is way too high, or whoa, that force is not high enough, or that's in the wrong place. And then it could have been a problem with you adding different forces and different things, which led you to a wrong answer, which is the same thing with AI prompting.
Exactly.
You might get a website, but you might not get the best website, or you might get bugs, and
then
you're like,
you won't know how to debug, you won't pick up the errors in the code, you won't know how to ask the right question to correct any errors precisely. And what I've seen and at least picked up with this technology is the newness of it. People are struggling to understand and know how to use it to get the most out of it. So I heard a great analogy. So Steve Jobs had a lecture a long time ago in the 80s where he spoke about new technologies, and he made the example of how when televisions were invented back in, the 40s or 50s, I don't know, when people started using televisions in a real mainstream way, they would do it to film radio shows. So they would put a sticker camera on a radio DJ just doing a radio show, because before the TV, radio was the biggest technology, you know? And so they didn't know what to do with these things called cameras and how to use them and look at what we do with TV today. So it just shows, it's a very similar thing. It's almost like now people use AI and AI prompting in the same way they use search engines. Because the last thing we had was search engines. And so people ask questions in the same way they would ask a search engine. And then sometimes they get an answer and they're not really impressed with it. And that's just because they're not using it properly. So it'll take some time, but there's also ways to learn it and train people. And it's something we really try to stay ahead of and optimize ourselves for the benefit of ourselves and for our clients.
So that's really interesting. So you guys do use a lot of AI in your day-to-day, but we also mentioned that you guys do a lot of data scraping. So how do you guys use data scraping, and how can it be utilized for market and competitive research?
Data scraping is really just collecting large amounts of publicly available data from the internet. So we build and use methods to go onto these public platforms where we're able to scrape and do so legally and collect information that is related to whatever the client's requirement or need is on a specific topic, you know. So some of the examples, at least some use cases are, we've used it to assist new brands who are coming into a market to do sort of market research on how competitors are operating in the market, and then use that for them with the market entry business strategy. In the e-commerce sphere, we've used it to collect pricing and product information from competitors, which allows us to then do analysis and give our clients a competitive edge in that regard. So they're on top of, having the most competitive prices, knowing what the competitors are doing in terms of, availability of stock and how they're driving certain prices of certain products in the market. And then also we do things like sentiment analysis, where we scrape, it could be topics or themes, or even just what people are saying about your brand. What is an interesting topic that they're interested in or talking about, that you can leverage off of or make brand decisions on, because this is what people are interested in at the time, at least. So yeah, there's a multitude of applications for scraping. It's a bottomless well.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are just a few ways that we use it.
Yeah, I've seen, or I've at least heard you guys use it in so many different ways, whether that's sentiment of how people feel about brands, so that you can actually leverage that and see that, oh, you have a lot of complaints, or people aren't really happy with what you guys are doing, or they might be really happy with what you're doing, but you're not getting the right pricing out there. You're not getting the right sort of paid media strategy. Exactly. And I think having that sort of scraping tool and having you guys be able to be like, this is sort of where the problem lies, this is what you need to fix, is a really powerful tool. I think, especially in today's world, I think we spoke about it with Chris, with paid media, where people aren't leveraging like the correct things. Yeah. And because of that, they're not being seen. And because they're not being seen, they're not getting sales. Yeah. And it just sort of leads down to this bottomless pit of you just sort of getting lost on the internet.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, most people have this data available and it's theirs, but they're just not using it.
Yeah.
They've got social media profiles and all these platforms where they're getting all this feedback, this constant sort of, it's a constant feedback loop from their clients and their users that no one's attending to, because no one human can really go and sit and read thousands of comments or, every hashtag that comes out. But we're able to get that information and then immediately look for patterns and trends. And you maybe think that everything's going okay, but there could be a consistent sort of question that comes up amongst users or consumers or buyers that you haven't actually looked into, that maybe a certain product isn't performing the way you want it to, and people are always complaining or asking about it, that you can pick up on, So yeah, we really help people leverage the power of and the usefulness of their own data.
That is, once again, like you said, it's like impossible, especially if you have a larger brand. You can't read thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, and sometimes they're not even, I would say, visibly available to you, because they might complain on a different platform.
Exactly.
And now you guys can actually just scrape everything and have a condensed, summarized version of that and give that to the client and be like, hey, but we've actually seen this problem.
Yeah. It also allows you to look at the group of people in a non-homogeneous way. Because if you're just looking at what people say on Facebook, it's a very specific demographic. We know that a lot of the people who are on Facebook now are actually an older generation, that younger people are moving to different platforms. So now you're looking at a smaller use case and a smaller group of people who engage with your brand. So you're not going to get the full insight into what people are thinking. Whereas if you supplement or cross that over to what people are saying about you on TikTok and on Twitter, because like you say, some people go and comment on different platforms. Now you get a better idea overall, just because now you've got a different profile of person across the board. But you're still, it's still all related to you and your brand, and it's things that you can take advantage of and be useful to you.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you guys have a specific example of where you sort of use data scraping to get the sort of competitive edge for a brand?
Well, I've given you the example already in terms of competitive pricing, because our company is obviously, we're quite strong in the e-commerce space as well. We've got a lot of experience in that area and worked with a lot of big brands in e-commerce, and we continue to do so. Often we assist with gathering pricing information and product stock information, to see how the market's being driven in that regard. We supplement that with other market trend data which we collect from other places, and it's helped clients to know what kind of sort of stock holdings to have on certain products, which products to drive in terms of pricing, and where their best margins can be. So yeah, in the pricing sense, we've really helped with that. And then again, with, like I mentioned, with brands who are new to the South African market, we've also gone and done sentiment analysis around the sector that they were coming into, so they could see exactly what the which kind of product points they should really be sticking to on entry into the market, understanding what the South African market is like, because they're coming from Asia or from Europe and they're not really knowing what the South African buyer or user is about, and really giving them that insight into the South African consumer by showing them how they speak on certain subjects, what their knowledge is on it, if they require further education. Should we drive this campaign through education first? Should it be more awareness? Should it be on a certain aspect of the product or service you're selling? So there's all-round uses for us, and those are some of the applications we've had already.
Like, we've been in a few meetings where we actually had that exact thing, where it's like, okay, for this campaign, we actually seen that the educational level of your product is not where it needs to be, or at least you're assuming people need to know.
It may be very high in your markets, but in a South African one, and I think the VPN is maybe one you're referring to now, exactly. And South Africans just are unsure about it. Yeah. So we're working with a big brand now that you know of, which is bringing, has a great VPN product, and we just find that South Africans ask different questions to anyone else around the world. And the education level is quite low comparatively around the subject, and people misconstrue VPNs for sort of firewall security and that kind of thing. And so we're helping with that brand strategy, as you know, because you're very involved in it as well.
Yeah, and it was just interesting to see, because like they just came in with this proposal of, this is what we want to do, but then after you guys were actually able to tell them, like, but wait, like according to our research, this is what we need to do. And also just having that data available, where it's not a thing of we think that is it, but rather the data is backing this.
Goes back to it, not us leading. We could have put ourselves in a situation where we just tried to appease them and go with what they thought was right, but instead we've gone, listen, this is actually what the data says, and we're led by the data, not by what maybe the client wants specifically. But obviously what the client wants is very important to us, because we then use the data in our findings and we align that with the client's own KPIs. That for us is extremely important, because the client's got a clear objective and idea of what they want to achieve. And so then we look at what we find in the data and what the client wants to achieve, and we combine those to then devise and inform the strategies which we give them.
Sure. So we've sort of touched on some examples, but what are sort of the best methods that you find you can use to effectively use data scraping for like strategies for marketing?
In terms of data analysis and that, not just scraping, but using all that information to come up with something actionable and useful. So SWOT is a good method, which is sort of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So that's one method of data analysis which we use. Which it's not a new method. Most data analysts are aware of it, and it's still quite a useful one. As well as what I mentioned earlier too, which is EDA, exploratory data analysis, which includes statistical analytical methods. As well as using things like visualizations to looking to find patterns and trends. So those are some of the methods that we use. No one's sort of thumb sucking and making things up, but we use some really strong powerful tools as well, which help us with that, with really coming up with the best sort of analytical results to share with our clients.
So this has been really insightful. I think there's still so much more to just sort of discuss around the topic. Yeah. But what do you think for businesses looking to sort of improve and get better data results? What do you think are sort of the next steps for them? Or do you think that most people should just rather, instead of trying to do it themselves, go to people that actually can do it?
I mean, first of all, if you haven't started, don't be overwhelmed. Don't think that it's not something for you. I would say the first thing to do is just to get started.
Yeah.
There's more than likely you are collecting information in some way in your business that can be used to improve and help your business. I would say get started. If you think you're technically good enough, or you can find ways to do it yourself, hey, go ahead. Maybe try it out. But also, there are people who do this, and companies like us who can assist, who can help. First of all, I think we're in an advantageous place in that we can look at your entire sort of data profile and make you understand what you've got available first of all, and then make you understand how you can use it. Most even small and mid-sized companies, owners are too busy, running the company to really even understand that they've got this available and how to use it.
Yeah.
And that's where we really come in. And what I really enjoy and like about our company is that when we're not too big for anyone and we're not too small for anyone either.
Yeah.
We look at cases, we look at our work and our clients and we treat them on a case by case basis. And we always try and find a way to help. So there's no business that's really too small for us.
Yeah.
And we adjust our offerings and what we can do for them based on what they need and obviously what they can afford as well. So I would say get started. I know it might be difficult for you to go and understand all of the data you may have available, but then we can do those kind of audits for you as well and help explain and help you understand what you can do and just how it can really improve your company. But the point is to get started, because if you haven't, you're likely sitting on some kind of mine. It could be gold, it could be diamonds, but you're sitting on something that's valuable and that could make you and your company better in the long run.
And I think also divorcing yourself from data, because one example I love using is YouTube analytics.
Yeah.
Where you have so much data.
Yeah.
But I've seen it so many times where people take what they want to.
Yes.
For example, total amount of views, which is a good one. People love just seeing that number be high. But a lot of the times on the back end, you see viewer drop-offs. You see people aren't very satisfied, a lot of dislikes perhaps, not a lot of engagement, which are all metrics that you should be able to utilize and be like, okay, cool, why aren't people watching a video for a long time?
Yeah.
Might be the information might not be good, or you might take too long to get to the point you want to get to. And sometimes that data is also very important. So divorcing yourself once again from the data and actually looking at it as a whole and being like, where can I improve and how should I use this, I think is very, very important.
Yeah, a lot of times clients come in with this idea and they love the vanity metrics, the ones that you and it's again when I spoke about bias earlier, people even have biases in the way they view their own data. Everyone just looks at the best things, Yeah,
no, for sure.
You can look at your own Twitter data and you just want to see the great stuff about it. How many likes or shares or those kind of things. But there's also a lot of value in the detail of where things aren't going as well.
Yeah.
In fact, and so we're there to unashamedly show you where those things are, but then to not just leave you there, to say this is how we improve those things, to really give you the answers and the strategies to actually fixing those things. Like you mentioned just now, not everyone looks at average watch times and why people are dropping off at a certain point, or why they're not engaging with a video or other kinds of content. And then we try and we pick those things up, and it allows us to then not deal with symptoms, but then go to cause issues and help fix those up. And we can work with people like yourself in our creative department to say, hey, maybe we need to adjust that strategy, and you guys can start looking at that and coming up with your own suggestions to how to fix those kinds of things. And then those vanity metrics still remain high, but now your user is more engaged, and it gives you an opportunity to attract a new kind of user as well.
We can sort of chat about this on and on entire day. But thank you so much for joining us. I think we'll definitely have you on for perhaps even a second or the third session, just to sort of deep dive into different sections. But yeah, thank you so much for just sharing all of your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Jacques. Anytime, man. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this sort of episode of this data breakdown. And then we'll definitely see you guys next week for a different section.
Cheers, everyone.